Alright, so now we're moving on to the TIE SE Bomber. So first we're going to start with this maneuver dial, of course. So on the 1-speed dial, it has a 1 forward blue, 1 banks white, and 1 hearts red. On the 2-speed, it has a 2 forward blue, 2 banks white, 2 hearts white. On the 3-speed, a 3 forward blue, 3 banks white, 3 hearts white, 3 secondary loops, and a 4K and a 4 forward. So a pretty interesting maneuver dial for sure. Yeah, 1 through 3 forward blue maneuvers only, no banks even, so that's kind of interesting. The red 1 hearts are interesting as well. So it can go 1 heart, it just stresses itself. But the 3 secondary loops I find very interesting as well. Like, it turns around, but not straight away, just at an angle, which I find kind of interesting, to be honest. I guess it fits well with the ship design. But yeah, whatever. That's pretty interesting dial. It's not super fantastic, but it's not really bad either. Obviously, you want to avoid stress where you can, but if you do take stress, then I don't know, doing a 1 forward's okay, or just doing a white maneuver, I guess. I don't know. Your choice, I guess. So going on to the stat bar, all TIE SE bomber pilots have 2 attack dice, 2 agility, 4 hull, and 2 shields. So I thought they would have a little bit more attack dice. They have 4 laser cannons, for example, so I'm not exactly sure. But game-wise, I think this makes sense, obviously. But I do think the stat bar is super similar to the TIE bomber with 2 attack, 2 defense dice, and 6 hull. This isn't really much of an improvement, more like they reduced the hull to give us shields. Obviously, the first order ships would have shields, but I don't think they would have tried to reduce the hull. I think 5 hull, 3 shields would have made more sense, or 5 hull, 2 shields. But I guess because the wings are pointed outwards, it doesn't protect the ship as much, so I guess that hull is a little bit more exposed, meaning it's only 4. But I still think that's just kind of to make this ship not as overpowered, so, but yeah. Anyways, the action bar is actually pretty impressive for this ship. So our first action is focus, our second action is target lock, and then we have barrel roll to a red target lock, a red boost, and reload to a red evade. So this is actually a pretty good action bar. We got all the base bomber actions, focus and target lock, barrel roll to target lock, which is great, a boost added onto that, and then the reload, which you can link to an evade to stay around a little bit longer. It lets you, this is probably one of the first ships that actually lets you do something after you reload to stay around a little bit longer, which is great. Now, this ship does have the modification slot on its upgrade bar, so you can easily use engine upgrades to make your red boost a white boost, which is a fantastic option, being able to just boost, you know, for free as a white, and that really pairs well with the ship ability, which is pursuit thrusters. During the system phase, you may perform a boost action. So ordinarily, that would be a red boost, so then they would be stressed, thus the only maneuvers they could execute would be blue maneuvers or white maneuvers, but then you skip your action. But if you use engine upgrade to make that a white boost, then they just get to boost for free, and then do their maneuver, and then do their action. And even more interesting, they do have bomb slots on them, so you can boost, so this is during the system phase, so you can boost before you drop your bomb, which is really interesting. It really adds a new level to gameplay. Like, if they're in front of your face, they can boost and then just drop the bomb right where you're going. So, them dropping bombs is a much more interesting strategy, for sure. The fact that they can reposition themselves right before they make that bomb drop is insanely good. Obviously, the Imperial TIE bombers were able to use a 1 bank template, but that doesn't really compare to how good this is. This is like, if this guy is like right in front of someone, he can then just boost almost out of the way, but then drop a bomb right where he was. So now the opponent has to fly through that bomb. And more importantly, this means that he can boost out. These guys can boost out of the way of obstacles or bombs if those are dropped during the system phase as well. I mean, it may mess up their maneuver, of course, but should they have just like a 3 seconds loop or a 1 hard in the direction they were wanting to go in anyways, it can be really powerful. And a boost to a 2 hard is also really good. So yeah, engine upgrade on these guys with pursuit thrusters is a really strong option. And definitely really cool. I think it really makes these guys way better than the Imperial TIE bombers. It makes this ship really interesting and really something to look at. Because the stat bar is not really that impressive. The fact, though, that they can get a white boost and then do a free boost in the system phase makes them way better than the TIE bombers. And absolutely worth it. So, the first pilot we have is the Steiner Jameis test pilot at Initiative 2. The upgrade bar is Tech, Torpedo, Missile, Gunner, 2 bomb slots, and a modification. Now, of course, when this ship was first revealed on the AMG's Twitter page, they only had 1 bomb slot, so I really like how they added a second one, because I don't think the First Order would take a bomb slot off the original TIE Bomber design. Taking the missile off is kind of weird, to be honest, but I guess it's because they don't really want players to be able to use Fanatical with barrage rockets and advanced optics. That would be absolute nightmare, I guess, with these guys. But it is important to note that you can't fit 5 of those into one list. You can only fit 4. So I don't think that would be that overpowered, to be honest, but whatever. I guess, they have their own reasons for only giving them 1 missile. So I'm alright with it. They still have the torpedo, and the fact that they can carry just as much ordnance is fine with me. So they have tech as well, which is interesting, and I think definitely adds to them a whole lot for sure. So yeah, anyways, the points of the Simultaneous Test Pilot are 31. So 4 more points than the regular TIE Bomber Pilot. 7 more if you add the engine upgrade, but for that 7 more points, you have way more boost coverage with good bomb droppings. So yeah, I think it's totally worth the extra 4 points. But the Simultaneous Test Pilot, point-wise, pales really in comparison to our next pilot, which is also non-unique, and it is the First Order Cadet. So the First Order Cadet is a 3 initiative pilot, obviously, the initiative improvement there. But more importantly, the First Order Cadet also has an EPT talent, which can be used to, put on Fanatical for extra mod or whatever. But the most interesting thing is this guy's actually only 1 more point than the Simultaneous Test Pilot. And for 1 more point, you get EPT talent, which is absolutely useful on the bomber ship, as there's an EPT in this expansion, which will make it so, as well as another combination that I'll maybe leak at the end of this video or for next video when I do a list building session with the bomber. So the talent adds a whole lot to the First Order Cadet, and it's only 1 more point too. And for an extra 2 initiative value for 3, that's really cheap for 1 point. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I think the First Order Cadet will definitely see a lot of play. So will the Simultaneous Test Pilot, but really only when you don't have that extra point for the First Order Cadet. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Alright, so our first unique pilot is Grudge, Hateful Harrier. He's got a 2 initiative value, and his ability is, while a friendly bomber mine at range 0 to 2 detonates, each time attack dice are rolled to resolve its effect, you may reroll up to 1 of those dice. So a very powerful ability. Because he has double bomb slots, you could easily combine this with the 2-point bomblet generator. Or you could do the electroproton bomb, since these guys also have a device and modification slot. Or you could do proximity mines, cluster mines, whatever. The point is, though, with the reroll, that's really powerful. Like, that makes your proximity mines go from a 2 damage to an almost always 3 damage bomb. And the same with cluster mines. Like, those go up from 3 damage to now 6 damage pretty easy, for sure. So this guy is, or at least 5. That's a lot of damage from bombs that this guy gives rerolls. And in particular with electroproton bomb, I think that'll be interesting as well. Because rolling 4 attack dice, you're obviously each different symbol obviously does something different. So rerolling a die can absolutely change the tide on what happens to that ship, whether it loses a shield, or gains a jam token, or maybe even gains a disarm token if you reroll to that crit. So in this, he rerolls each time the bomb goes off. So if like an electroproton bomb goes off, for example, and hits 4 different X-wings, he's gonna be able to reroll a die for each different X-wing. So yeah, that's a really strong ability for bombs. Now, this guy doesn't have EPT talent, which is alright. He's only 2 initiative overall, of course, so that doesn't really matter too much. And that is kind of unfortunate. And he is 36 points, which is actually as expensive as the highest initiative pilot. It obviously makes sense, though. The fact that he increases the bomb's effectiveness by so much makes sense why he's so expensive, but I do find it interesting nonetheless. I definitely think putting like a bomb or 2 on him for like 45 points is a really good idea. Just him flying around dropping bombs can absolutely change the tide in the game. And the fact that his ability works on any friendly bomb makes him even more dangerous, because that means his friendly bombers are going to be able to drop their bombs like bomblet generators or proximity mines, and he's going to be able to reroll those dice as well. So yeah, this guy is going to be the bane of the existence for the new bombers with their new bombing strategies. So makes sense why he's so expensive, and yeah, he's going to be really good basically with the bombers, the bombing strategy. His only disadvantage is the lack of EPT talent, which I'll get to in a moment why it's such a lack. But before we do that, we move on to the other pilots, which is Dread. So Dread is a 3 initiative pilot. Unlike the First Order Cadet, he does not have an EPT talent, so he's actually the same amount of points, 32 points, just like the First Order Cadet, mainly because his pilot ability replaces the talent. So after he reloads, each ship in his bullseye firing arc gains 1 deplete token. Now, this is this refers to also friendly ships as well. So if you have like 2 first order TIE fighters in his bullseye, those 2 ships get depleted, as well as maybe say the X-wing in your bullseye as well. So you got to be really careful when you use this ability when you reload with him. You don't want to line up your own friendly ships getting depleted, unless of course you want them to have those red tokens. Is a upgrade in this expansion that does kind of benefit off of that. Or if you're, say, Hollows in the list and you can have Hollow transfer the token to someone else, then it doesn't really matter. But if you can pull this off on your enemy ships, it's interesting too. So I think pulling it off on the enemy ships is slightly difficult though. It's not really an ability you can really prep up for. Obviously, the only reposition you have is Pursuit Thrusters, which is only during the system phase. It's amazing for dropping bombs and for getting your maneuver a better situation, but for anticipating where your opponents are going to be, it's kind of pretty difficult to do that. So, yeah, so I think his ability is decent, but it's not going to pull off most of the time, and when it does pull off, it might just be on your own ship. So, I think the Cadet's going to be better just because of the EPT talent, which like I said, I'll get into at the end of this video. But overall, though, definitely this can work pretty well. So, yeah, I mean, I guess Dread's pretty good. So he's not terrible. You know, not the best ability either, but he's not terrible. So, yeah. Right, our next bomber pilot is Scorch, and yes, this is the same Scorch from the First Order TIE Fighter. Good to see him back. He is super popular in the First Order TIE Fighter. Glad to see he gets another ship. I hope we get to see him in the future with more First Order ships, if they do have those, because that would be great. He is a really cool pilot for the First Order, and in the bomber, he doesn't disappoint. So he's 4 initiative, just like the First Order TIE Fighter, but his ability is slightly different. So while a friendly ship at range 0 to 1 performs a primary attack, it may spin 1 hit result. If it does, after defending, the defender gains 1 strain token. Now, you can only spin the hit result during your modify attack step, so you have to kind of decide as you're spinning the stuff to give strain tokens or whatever. So you can't really be like, roll 2 hits and your opponent rolls 3 evades and then choose to spin the hit. You have to choose to spin it before. So, slight gamble, but it is a really cool ability nonetheless. For example, if you're shooting at a TIE defender, well, if Scorch has like a torpedo lock on the defender with a focus token, and he has like an XC-class light shuttle right next to him that coordinated him the target lock, then the XC-class light shuttle, if it rolls a hit, normally that would be avoided because, this shuttle wouldn't have any mod to make it 2 hits or whatever. But now the shuttle can spin that hit to give the defender a strain token, meaning that your torpedo shot from Scorch or from another bomber is going to be much more powerful. And just like how the artwork shows, Scorch can pair really well with the First Order TIE Fighters. They only have 2 attack dice as well. This gives them much more power. So yeah, this is not a bad ability at all. It really makes him work well with other ships and your squadron. And really, depending on the situation, it can really make like a 1-hit blank a shot from a TIE fighter actually good, because then you give out a strain token to make your torpedo or other First Order TIE fighter shot way better. So yeah, definitely Scorch goes really well in a group. Whether it be like a group of 4 ships or 6 ships or 5 ships, he's definitely really strong. Another really good combination with him would be Suppressive Gunner. Now, with that upgrade card, you spend an eyeball result to give, and then your opponent either chooses to gain a deplete token or take a damage. So combining that with this ability, you'd be able to almost always do a deplete or a strain or a damage or a strain and a damage or a deplete and a strain. And for only 42, and this guy is only 35 points, so putting Suppressive Gunner on him is definitely a really cool combination. That's of course if you're not looking to put torpedoes on him. If you're looking to put torpedoes on him, you can lose Suppressive Gunner. It's pretty expensive and really is only a good combination if you're planning on just primary attacking people. But yeah, this ability is definitely really good though, for sure. It makes him go really good with groups, which I definitely think is what the bombers will do. But most of the bombers so far have been kind of more like, I only want to work with bombers, or my ability just works with anyone else. This is actually an ability that focuses on the rest of your list and really makes TIE fighters and shuttles really look good and appear good. So yeah, definitely not a bad ability, and for only 35 points, that's really good too. If you just want to add him in with like a bunch of First Order TIE fighters and like a big swarm, that could definitely be really nasty. So yeah, really cool. And finally, our last TIE bomber, well, TIE SE bomber pilot is Breach, the Ordnance Expert at a 5 initiative. Now, it's always interesting to see a 5 initiative Ordnance guy. Like for the Empire, we saw Redline and Tomux Bren, though Tomux Bren, through the conversion from 1.0 to 2.0, got really hit with nerfs and just isn't really that competitive. And And Redline was actually pretty good too until he got, super buffed up in points. But Breach is actually pretty good and really cheap for what he does too. So after he fully executes a maneuver or performs a boost action, if he moves through an enemy ship, he can acquire a target lock on that ship. So that's a really strong ability. The fact that he can do a 3 Segner's Loop maneuver and then acquire a lock on a ship is really great. And, with Pursuit Thrusters, you could also line up a boost. Now, of course, in majority of situations, because he's a 5 initiative pilot, most pilots will move before him, so it's not great doing that boost. You're not really going to know for sure where they're going to end up. But with engine upgrade, you could easily line up a boost on a 5 initiative pilot or a 6 initiative pilot that moves after Breach does. Breach does a 3 Segner's Loop maneuver on them, and now he's behind them with a target lock on him, and most likely they'll still be in his arc after they move. And as long as they're at like range 3 or 2, he'll be able to launch 4 dice at him with the proton torpedo. Another interesting idea with Breach as well is to put Pattern Analyzer on him. So after he does that 3 Segner's Loop maneuver, he gets to do like the target lock for free, because that's just his ability, and then with Pattern Analyzer, activate a focus token before he gets the stress. That is a really good combination. Combine that with engine upgrade, and you have a boost to focus target lock proton torpedo off of a single 3 Segner's Loop maneuver. So that's really good. He'll definitely be really strong, and there's many more combinations, but I'm not going to cover those right now because it would make the video take too long. I'll cover those in a future video on Breach the Bomber Pilot, the best 5 initiative ordnance carrier in the game right now. And that's the TIE SE Bomber. For those of you that didn't know, there is 2 copies of each non-unique pilot, so you can use 2 First Order cadets together by just getting 1 Fury of First Order Squadron pack. Just want to let you know in case you were worried about that. Also, this is part 2 of the Fury of First Order Squadron pack review. Part 1, there's a link in the description for part 1 and a link in the description for part 2 if you're wanting to watch those. And there's also a playlist on my YouTube channel with all 3 videos if you just want to watch that. And yeah, I think this SE bomber will be really good. Not only can it boost before dropping bombs, but also launch torpedoes. It's going to be insane. I definitely think it'll be great. And I'm looking forward to doing the list building videos on it because it is a really insanely good ship. But yeah, anyways, next video we're going to wrap up this expansion review by looking at all the upgrade cards in this expansion. See you then, and may the Force be with you.